everyone. My name is Ilona Gabinsky, and this is Avis podcast series. And today we will be talking about deep network observability in today's AI era. How observability is evolving, what's working, and where the biggest challenges are right now for customers to keep up with these modern infrastructure demands. And joining me today is Chris DePuy from 650 Group. Chris has been analyzing the networking space for years and has a front row seat to how observability markets are changing in response to AI-driven traffic. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to join with you.
So before we dive into all the trends and customer pain points, I would love to start with your story. Tell us a little about yourself, what inspired you to become an analyst, and what's your current focus in networking and observability?
I've been, Ilona, thanks. I've been an analyst for a long time. I've been three different kinds of analysts. I've been a sell-side analyst on Wall Street. I then worked as a buy-side analyst, and now I'm an industry analyst here at 650 Group. And actually, my first analyst job was in 1995 when I was researching the local area network market, the LAN market, and the security market. So I've been at LAN and security for a very, very long time. And following that, I was involved in the hedge fund and late stage venture capital industry, also researching networking. And then I was involved with a startup that was involving the security and wireless industry, and been an industry analyst since 2011, and one of the co-founders now of 650 Group. We started that in 2017. And among my current responsibilities, I do research campus networking and security and observability. I also have a few other research areas that relate to the service provider, equipment and software industry, as well as wireless. And it's so interesting to see what's happening these days in the networking and security market. We're entering a new era, the AI era. I think most everybody knows that. But what's happening is, as we enter this new era, we're seeing new silos develop. And it's really interesting to think about that, because we've been trying to tear down silos forever. And here comes a new era where it's going to operate on its own and almost independent in many ways from the current IT stack we see. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we figured out in researching the observability market is telemetry is like the glue that binds each of these silos. And anyway, that's one of the kind of themes that we're working on as I ramp through my research in networking and observability.
Yeah, that's awesome that you mentioned that, Chris, that these silos are developing. So how are companies approaching this pain point? What do you see that's happening in the market? And at the same time that they're still demanding, high performance and scalability?
Yeah, right. So it's really interesting to think about as we evolve into this new AI era, right? What that means is we're going to see new cloud providers develop, and what that does is we transition from the current world where we've got on-prem and cloud, and there really, to speak of, are about three cloud providers, and that's what we've historically called multi-cloud. But what we're doing is driving a need for a third set of cloud providers who provide AI computing, as well as the apps that run on them. And we're going to have three places where computing happens in the future. And what we expect is that the installed base of computing will go from today it's about $1 trillion worth of computing and networking systems in place, and most of which is on traditional computing systems. Let's just call it the x86 and current stack. But in about 5 years, we'll have $2 trillion worth of infrastructure that we are going to be using in this AI era. And over half of that, well over half of it, in fact, will be based on AI infrastructure systems. So what that does is drives a need for dramatically increased scalability because we're now dealing with 50% more numbers of clouds, but also the performance needs are going to really change. Think about what's going to happen in this era where we've got not just cloud computing, but we've got AI cloud computing interacting with cloud computing as well as everything on-prem, all at the same time. We're trying to make sure intellectual property of our companies remains where it should. And while we are managing the privacy of our users and complying with insurance contracts that deal with cybersecurity and also other corporate governance things, I think there's going to be an explosion in the need for performance and scalability in this new AI era.
Right, right. Thank you very much. So let me bring the conversation back a little bit right now to observability specifically and to Avis. But because you mentioned there is such a huge demand, and with the AI, everything just changes so fast. And you know that our observability solution is based on the open source Sonic platform. So beyond just cost, how important it is you think will be for customers and for enterprises to really have this software first observability solution that will be able to meet the modern network demands that you were just talking about?
Yeah, well, you're right. Storage and ingress and egress costs drive a lot of the decision making. I mean, I've heard it for a decade, so that is true. But having a system that can gather telemetry, make sense of it, that is of very high performance and scalability, I think that's going to be increasingly the driver to decision making of like what type of observability system are you going to be working with, right? So in this environment where we've got three different places where computing is going to happen on-prem, in the traditional cloud, and then in an AI cloud, we're very likely with more clouds to see more traffic and growing complexity, right? This drives a need for more performance and scalability. And I don't see a way around that. We are entering this new era, and it's just going to drive more of a need. Now, the thing is today, over the course of a typical day, the average IT person touches at least 12 sites and tools each day. And as we increase the number of places where the computing workloads are going to be occurring, this is going to drive a need for more and more and more tools. And we'll see an environment where there won't be enough fingers clicking mouses and people looking at keyboards to keep up with this. That's why we need new observability tools to bear. And I just don't think that with this increase in workloads going to many more clouds and the disappearance of perimeters and that type of a change, that we're going to be able to keep up with the current set of observability tools that we see in the market today.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, so do you believe AI copilots for networking will become essential for the real-time insights and automation as well?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that you're going to have humans scale with the amount of traffic and complexity that's going to happen in the future. So yes, the concept of an AI copilot, we're seeing that in other industries, right? But in the observability arena, I think that it's even more important because we're dealing with trying to keep up with traffic, and you just can't keep up with the growing complexity in the AI era. So yeah, I think that we'll see an environment where IT people are engaging with these observability tools and simply asking questions of these tools. Hi, what's happening now? What are the trends? As opposed to pointing and clicking and seeing their way through the problem. And so, yes, copilots, I believe, will be the primary new interface to a soaring amount of telemetry that will occur in the AI era.
And I have two follow-up questions for you. So how fast do you think people will realize that this is now a necessity to enable those AI copilots that will be helping them with their everyday operations? And my second question is, do you think AI copilots will become more like a commodity moving forward?
Yeah, well, the thing about using AI automation tools to enhance the way that let's say today's software works is it's happening across so many different software functions in addition to observability, right? So the terminology copilot is I'm finding as we do our research in numerous areas, that is actually a pretty common
Mhm.
thread across many different parts of the IT stack. And there's a reason why it's becoming so popular. It's because it's needed, right?
Mhm.
If you look at the way that other software tools are being enhanced and the user's interaction with them is becoming more productive, it is in large part because we're changing the way we interface with software. But steering back to observability, I'm convinced that as we gather much more telemetry in the future, I don't see a way to navigate through it using the current user interfaces that are popular today. I mean, there are lots of useful things you can do with today's infrastructure, but well, if you're gathering more telemetry across many more computing facilities, I don't think that a human's going to be able to click their way through the problem. It's you need, like you're saying, like a co-pilot to sort of help you work through it and ask troubleshooting questions, understand the trends, and that's those are the kind of open-ended questions that the co-pilots will get you to.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I have one more question regarding not just AI, which is definitely changing the way we think about observability and networking, but also the cost. So, of course, we're seeing that AI is changing the space, but we're also seeing that the cost is an important factor
Yeah.
for our customers when they make observability decisions. So, what you see in the market, how are companies approaching cost optimization, and how important this factor for them?
Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, cost is a critical
Mm.
part of the decision-making process. I mean, frankly, for everything in IT, budgets are constrained. You're not hearing about IT budgets running away, but you are hearing lots of stories about how traffic and number of applications are growing, as well. The costs of clouds are growing because capital spending is soaring, right? So yes, cost certainly is a very important aspect to purchasing. But the thing is that there's a lot of ways to look at cost, right? One of the biggest issues and drivers to spending is if you get locked into a certain type of software or hardware or computing environment, and then you realize only too late that you're stuck in the system. And I think one of the aspects you can consider when you're looking at in our case, we're talking about observability systems, is are you dealing with a neutral third party? And this is a way to have it so that you're not tied to a certain type of hardware for doing like things like packet brokers, or you're
Mhm.
not tied to a certain switch or router that is involving with an observability system, or you're not tied to a telemetry system that's part of the cloud environment that you've decided to work with and bring your applications to, or you're not tied to an FPGA or an ASIC that's very specific to a certain vendor or environment. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the ways to sort of reduce costs or at least take the risk of a decision out is to work with a third party. And I think there's a really strong case to be made for working with an open environment that by its very nature is not specifically tied to a cloud, to hardware, to a switch or a router, to a cloud provider. And this is a risk mitigation strategy. And in fact, there's a real strong case that working with a software company that runs across all of these different environments, clouds, ASICs, switches, routers, packet broker hardware, or an open computing system that it can be accelerated and made for use in that software environment. I think that's not exactly the question you asked, but I see this as a risk strategy of what happens if I get stuck into a certain environment. How do I navigate that? One of the big surprises we've seen in the past handful of years is some of the observability industries getting acquired by vendors, right? And we are also seeing not just tie-ups with the networking industry, but we're also seeing the security industry eat up the observability landscape. And how do you navigate that? Do you have to, if you're purchasing IT tools, do you have to then predict M&A? I mean, that's just too much. So I believe that this is a fundamental risk mitigation strategy to remain open and focus on software. And by the way, doing that can also reduce your upfront costs if you purchase well.
Absolutely. Chris, that actually brings me to my next topic. Now, as you know, we are doing the Observability Interop event on August 7th that actually the aim of this event is to validate this multi-vendor software for solutions across. We're doing this event together with our partners, together with NVIDIA, Cisco, Celestica, EdgeCore, and all others, to really validate and test the observability solution across any hardware vendor based on customer use cases. So, and that's what we're doing. And actually, as you're mentioning, reducing this risk for customers to be tied to just one specific vendor. So my question to you is how important this kind of interoperability testing for customers who are trying to make these decisions to move forward with more open approach?
Yeah, well, you're in good company at this conference, I'd say. You ran through a really impressive list. So, I mean, the thing about interoperability is you're kind of nowhere if you're not interoperating. So, I think that this is a really big advancement for your company, but also for the industry, because what I'm seeing is when I'm interviewing enterprises, they're trying to reduce the risks they have of getting stuck in a certain vendor or cloud ecosystem. And therefore, interoperability is exactly what they're looking for, right? So this is, the world we are now entering. And, there's such a natural tendency for large companies to want to force enterprises into their ecosystem. I mean, it's almost like the playbook one must follow. And it's not like, you should take away the profit motive for, the IT industry on one hand. On the other, it's the enterprise's, responsibility to do their best to mitigate this risk by ensuring that they've, found systems to interoperate. And I can think of no better way in the observability landscape than working with companies that represent a third party and relationship to clouds and hardware vendors, right? So I'm of the mind that an open software environment is one really strong and valid approach to take in this environment. And interoperability is the whole thing, right? You're in good company if you've found that the environment that you're working with is interoperable.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Chris. We're almost at the top of the hour. I just have one more question to end on a lighter note.
Yes.
So if you could snap your fingers and instantly fix one observability headache that network teams face today, what would you choose and why?
Well, the many vendors are incentivized to not open themselves up to observability systems and share data. it's a very natural place for them to be. And the larger the vendor, the more likely they are to not open up. So if I were to snap my fingers, I would make it easier for data to tap and make it easier to grab API pulls and logs and other telemetry. And I think that an unaffiliated open system will actually address many of these concerns.
Awesome. Chris, thank you very much again for joining us at this podcast series. It's been a great conversation, and looking forward to talking more to you about observability and all other networking issues.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.